We are here. It's Matt, it's Brian, and we are going to talk about the 2021 restaurant marketing plan. And full disclosure, I have not told Brian what this webinar is about. So I figured Brian will be a great guest. So I'm going to go ahead, and if you want to comment in the chat, everybody, who you are, where you're from, all that good stuff, that would be great. Everybody's mics are on mute. Brian and I will talk, and then if you want to pop some questions in there, we can chat about stuff as well. But real quick, who I am, Matt Plapp, that's me, husband to Christy, who's in the other room, 21 years, I guess 25 years together. My daughter, Paige, is in college. My son, Cole, is in high school. Actually made me a pancake this morning. It was great. I'm sitting in my office having coffee. I work from home on Thursdays, and he comes out like, "You want a pancake?" And I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah.
So, can't beat that. So been in marketing since 1999, started in radio advertising sales along with, I think Doug Smith, who might be on the webinar today, and then built a website for my family's startup boat and RV dealership. And the rest is history with regards to my marketing. I'm a restaurant marketing author. I've written a couple of books, Don't 86 Your Restaurant Sales, Sell More Slices. I'm a coach. I speak at conferences when those happen. And I'm a host of a podcast that's on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, Facebook, called MPTV, hence named after MP. I like the color orange a little too much. And then you see the little fist logo over there. It's actually my initials, MP. I'm the CEO of a marketing firm. We work exclusive with restaurants across the country. And as I said, favorite color is orange. My third book comes out next month. It's called Restaurant Marketing That Works, named after our company, but also named after, pretty simply what it's based off of. So I'll introduce Brian a little, and then I'll let him introduce himself. But Brian, co-owner of Spatty Smokehouse in Moore, Oklahoma. I can attest to the amazing food. I've been there. It's great. I called you a creative genius, one of my favorite people. And Brian, I'm going to play a video after you tell us a little more about you.
I already see the video. So thank you. I appreciate the time and being one of your favorite people. That's awesome. So I am also married. I have 3 children. I got married 3 years ago to my wife, Catherine, who's one of the other owners of the restaurant, also a doctor. So she keeps us all in line. I've got a son who's 23 who just got engaged over Christmas, so we're excited about that. My daughter who's 18 who's going to go to culinary school next year, so that's exciting. And then my 15-year-old. I own 3 other businesses that have nothing to do with the restaurant world, and I work full-time for the largest technology company on the planet, where I run a global sales operations division. So from a Fatty's perspective, I do all the business components, a lot of the advertising conversations with Matt and crew, menu design, so on and so forth. My brother actually runs it day to day as the general manager and operations wise, but we do everything pretty much hand in hand when it comes to deciding around the menus and what have you. He gets to run it, and I have a day job I have to hold down. So pretty important when you launch into a restaurant endeavor, as many of you probably know, that you keep other revenue streams coming in, especially when you can't plan for something like COVID.
Yep.
And so it's been a blessing that I didn't jump ship. I've been with this company 14 years, so I've got a lot of latitude to be able to help with something like the restaurant, as well as my other business endeavors that I have outside of that. But marketing has been in my background for many, many years, not at the level on the online side that Matt has. But with my day job being a data analyst, one of the things that jumped out to me with Matt and his team was the data, right? It's what I could use to make decisions about my business that you don't get in a lot of other forms. And that was my initial draw. And then we can get into it later, I'm sure, but proof is in the pudding. And that's what's kept me around for over a year and a half now. So
cool. So I'm going to show a video, but real quick, if you can see on my computer or my camera, I got a sign that says, "I know Matt Plapp." And what I want you all to think about during this whole webinar is not that you know Matt Plapp, but I want you to think about that in your business, is that you need to be able to make an impact on people to the point that when they think of barbecue, they think of Fatty's. When they think of restaurant advertising, they think of Matt Plapp. Because the reason that people are not doing business with you or not doing it enough is because they simply don't know you. And so reason I wanted to put that into this video is because, Brian and his team do a lot of creative stuff. They do a lot of traditional stuff. They do a lot of the non-traditional stuff. They do a lot of creative stuff. I'm not going to play the whole video, but you can check it out on their Facebook page. but I'm going to click on this and you should be able to hear the audio. So let me
So the
know.
lady is my wife.
Yep.
The guy next to her was our former manager, and then the guy next to me is my brother.
And you're listening to The Delicious Fish.
Can y'all hear this?
on National Public Radio.
Might have to turn your radio
Now,
up.
TJ, it's the holiday season again. Our favorite time.
So I'll set the thing. I don't know if you all have seen this. This is a take off of some skits, and Brian and his crew have done a couple of these videos. And I'll fast forward this a little where all four of you are in here. But I bring this up because Brian's not a national conglomerate. He's not a multi-location, this was done with their own creative ability on what, an iPhone and some software on your phone?
We shot it with an iPhone. My daughter ran a computer that you can't see. It's off screen that we had the script on as a teleprompter. I had typed it up in Word, and she's literally arrowing down as we were saying lines. This is in the dining room of our restaurant that we put up brown butcher paper as the backdrop you can see there, and drew those are cassette tapes. This is a spoof off of the Saturday Night Live skit of Sweaty Balls.
Yeah.
That was from the 80s. I think somewhere in there. So yeah, I mean, it wasn't expensive. I don't think I think I spent $30 on that mic that's at the front of that table. The rest of it is just costume stuff and just random stuff we had around. So
yeah, it's great though. It's
Oh yeah, nothing says holiday time like a mouthful of our meat.
Still makes me laugh.
Tell us about your meat, fellas. Well, over at Fatty's Smokehouse, we have meats for every taste. So true. We have fatty meats.
So we won't watch the whole thing because we'd be here a while, but I show you all that because what I want to talk about today is restaurant marketing that will get attention, because 2020 to me showed me more than anything the importance of people knowing you and your brand if you're a restaurant or any business, honestly, because people's patterns were disrupted. But it also showed me the importance that you have to have a plan. You have to know what you're doing. And so the theme of this webinar is going to be to eliminate hope and pray and introduce into your business model, aim and expect. And what I mean by that, and Brian, tell me if this resonates with you, because the reason I wanted you on here is you're a restaurant owner, marketing, creative. For me, a lot of business, I feel like when they want to succeed in business, they hope that people enjoyed the food. They hope they remember them and they pray they come back. I'm more of a proponent of aiming and expecting. I want to aim at this particular group of people, these females that are 35 to 55 with kids, and I want to give them a reason and expect them to come in. Does that resonate?
It does. I actually have a great mentor who used to say to me all the time, and I've adopted this theory in my older age, is hope is what you do when you don't have a plan. It's not a course of action.
Okay.
And so I agree with you 100%. Like, hoping is what we all do, but without a plan, right? It's nothing. It's just hope. And the only thing I would add to the expect part, aim and expect, because I love that, is to reevaluate and adjust, or it comes right after that.
Yeah.
I think you and I have had conversations, Doug and I have had conversations that we aim, and a vast majority of our aiming has gotten us great results that we expected. And there's been a few things that haven't, and we evaluated and made adjustmants. And you're not afraid to do that, right? Failure is part of success. And that's true within marketing and menu design and specials and all that stuff. So yeah, it applies here too.
No, I think it's a huge thing. So next part I want you all to think about when you're looking at your restaurant marketing is this theory. And this is something that I think a lot of businesses miss on big time, over and above the hope and pray. But a lot of businesses miss on the fact that every effort, every dollar they spend is typically given to somebody else to borrow their bandwidth. If you're buying radio advertising, if you're buying a Facebook ad, if you're buying Instagram, if you're buying a billboard, direct mail, if you're standing outside with a sign, your effort and your money is spent to drive sales, which sometimes that's what's needed. But what I've found is that if you can take the same time and effort and money and spend that money to build a database that you own, when times come around that you have to announce that the dining room's closed, that we have third party, you now can sell through the database. So as we go through this, I want you to think about, because we're going to talk about 8 different tactics a lot of businesses use. And I want to get people's feedback that are on the webinar, and I want to get Brian's feedback about the different tactics, but I want to give you some theory behind it and show you some proof as well. But the main thing to think about, I think, when you think of your business, number one, everybody's got to know me. Well, if you're always depending on spending money with somebody else to get your word out, you better have a good deep pocketbook. A lot of, I know Brian isn't like a national barbecue chain of 100 locations that's got 7 figures in the bank to spend on marketing. So every dollar's got to count. And so really think about when you put together a marketing plan, 2021's here, when you're looking at the next 12 months, what are you doing to build your database so that every month when you turn around to talk to them, you don't got to go rent them again? Does that make sense?
I think it goes into the old adage we all know, if we've been in business, that the most expensive thing you can do is acquire a customer. Yeah. It's reselling to those customers through that database that it gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, especially if you do your job. You have a good product and a good experience, then it gets less and less expensive to continue to have them come into your building. So if you're going to spend that money in whatever marketing vehicle you go to acquire that customer, why have it as a one-time shot where I've got to go spend the money again to acquire them a second, third, fourth time?
And
have that database.
What really got my attention when I started this theory, I actually got on the board over here, the original one that I drew. I'll have to show this to you. It's kind of funny, kind of elementary. But I drew this during a webinar a few years ago, this slide. And when I drew this, I was just showing people, I'm like, no, you want your money to go to your database, not to your sales, because if you have it go to your database, you own the database. Email them, text them, talk to them. Majority of people that are on this webinar came from emails I've had in the past. So, when I sold radio advertising back in the day, people spent $200 on a commercial because the radio station had cultivated an audience. And I used to tell people, like, after I got into the business, I understood marketing more and more. I was always like, wow, what if you had this audience? What if your business had this audience? I think now, 2021 versus 1999, you have the ability, Facebook, Instagram, email, text, TikTok, Snapchat, LinkedIn, YouTube. It's a gold mine from a standpoint of marketing that wasn't around back in the day. So as we go forward in this whole presentation and in this whole year, when you think of marketing initiatives, I want you to think about one big element. I want you to comprehend, I'm sure you see this, Brian, and tell me, give me your feedback, but I know me, when I go to a restaurant, we're typically slow to give our order to the server because we have our phone in our hand looking at something. If I'm at a stoplight, I'm typically getting honked at by the person in front of me, or I'm honking at the person in front of me because they're on their cell phone. People are on their device a lot. And so as a restaurant, you need to think about what can you do to be in your customers' hands every week. So as you would say, Brian, how do you get your meat in their virtual hand every week?
So I think there's a couple of ways, right? I work pretty hard with Matt's team on a monthly advertising plan that's unique from what we do at our store. And part of what we do at our store is we put our actual personalities online. And Matt and Doug and I have talked about this at great length. Of the worst thing you can be is non-existent. The second worst thing you can be is fake, right? And so our videos, our pictures often have a sense of humor to them. They have a bit of jokingness to them. We typically do them raw. Like if you go back and look at the video we did last week about one of our specials, none of that was planned. And so they resonate with people and they create jokes. And quick story on that one there, Matt, and this is how you get them in. In that video, my brother kept complaining he wants a Snickers. He wants a Snickers. He left that day from the store. He went to Walmart, our local Walmart, and the checkout lady goes, "You're the Snickers guy that we shot that video an hour ago." He came back the next morning and one of our Grubhub drivers brought him a Snickers, right? So those stupid little things that you never think about, it had nothing to do with the food other than we were talking about our specials. It resonated with people because we were being real and the interaction was authentic. And that's what they get when they come into the store. We greet people without it being fake. We sit down and chat with people. We know half of our customers by name, which I know a lot of you do. That's just a great business practice. But it's that real environment that's emulated in our Facebook and Instagram world that I think that draws people back. They connect to it more than they do just a very perfectly pictured piece of brisket under perfect lighting with, the most thought out, possibly put together phrase. Ours look nice, but they're not, they're not that. And I think our people resonate in a blue collar town, in a blue collar meal. That's what they're looking for.
Yeah. And it's so unique now. And this is what I love about marketing in 2021 and 2020 and 19 and 18 and 17. When I was in radio back in 99, I was doing email back then. And we started our boat and RV dealership in 99 called Outdoor Consignments using email marketing, which was an anomaly back then, which is why we grew so well. But you didn't have these opportunities back then. If you wanted to market, you either had to go knock door to door and do some grassroots, or you had to spend money. And so today, there's too many opportunities that people just aren't taking advantage of. And so the thing that I want to show you, there's three things that I identify with as far as keys to marketing success. Number one, awareness. Everything you do for your business is about getting aware. What Brian talked about with getting, the guy in the checkout line that saw his brother, the Grubhub driver that came in and knew about the brand. It's the same with me. I've been at a coffee shop. I'm a small company. I was at a coffee shop in downtown Cincinnati one day, and a guy walked up and said, "Hey, I know we don't know each other, but I just want to introduce myself. I love your videos." And he's like, "I saw the orange shirt and orange shoes and instantly thought of you." And that you can all do that. It's not hard. It doesn't cost me anything to do webinars like this or live videos. It's just taking the time and effort. So awareness is the beginning of marketing. The second part, which is a key element that we have to have, is customer data. That if you don't know who your customers are and know about them, then you're just going to constantly be renting. And then the third part of all marketing should be sales. That if you don't know that what you're doing is leading to success, then that's half the battle. I always use the example, and I tell this to people as I train people in marketing, and they say, "Man, Matt, I have a hard time talking to small business about advertising. They're so skeptical." I said, "Well, here's why they're skeptical. I want you to picture," and Brian, you're a homeowner, right? Still with me? I think I lost him. Where'd he go? Can you hear me, Brian? Oh, I got to unmute. No, that's weird. You got muted. Hold on. Unmute. Ask to unmute. I'm asking you. There we go.
Yeah, sorry. I muted myself so I could cough, and then it wouldn't let me unmute.
You're a homeowner, right?
Yeah.
So I want you to envision this. Matt Plapp is your realtor, and I'm the guy that sells you your house. And you buy it on January 1st, 2010. And for the next 2 or 3 years, I tell you, Brian, the house is there. You've never been to it. You've never seen it. You're paying it every month, but it's there. You'd be kind of skeptical at some point, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I equate marketing, that a lot of businesses have spent money on it. It's happened supposedly. Like I always wonder, like radio commercial goes out. They say, "Oh, 15,000 people heard it." Well, did they? And did they spend money? So that last element is driving sales, is understanding the sales. So what we've created in today's presentation isn't about our system, it's about tactics and beliefs. But what we've identified as ways to make all of that work is a 5-step sequence. That's why you see the little dots in a circle. Yellow for me is engagement, orange is data, and green is sales. And I think there's a way to make the world go round with it, that if instead of getting awareness, you get engagement from awareness, you can take it to the next step, which is you can find customer data. If you can get customer data, you can use that to drive people in with trackable promotions so that you know you're on the right path. Once you get people in your door, you can find out more information about them. And last but not least, you can talk to them more often. And so we're going to walk through each of these steps, and chime in, Brian, as you want to. The big thing I want to point out, and this is the hardest part in the beginning, is how do you gain engagement? A lot of people fail on this. I had a conversation with a restaurant the other day, and I was looking at their social media, and at no point did they actually try to get people to do anything. And then the one time that they kind of did, they put their website link, and then I go to their website and there's 500 options. So what I want you to think about is when you're marketing to try and do what I'm going to show you today, you need to give people a strong reason to take action, but you need to give them an opportunity to go one place and do one thing. If my daughter as an 18-year-old comes home and asks me a question and I give her 20 opportunities, she's going to find every little loophole. If I go to Kroger, there's a reason Kroger grocery store has one front door. If they had doors out the side and back, I might walk out with food. So That's what happens a lot of times in your marketing is you don't give a strong enough call to action to get engagement, meaning a click, a comment, a share, a scan of a QR code in a restaurant, and you don't take them to one place with one opportunity. We typically want to take people to our website, and when we get to our website, there's 50 things they can do there, and they end up not doing what you want them to do because you gave them 50 options. So here's the 8 things I want to point out, what I see as possible paths to awareness and engagement. I'm not going to dig into all of these, but in the comments, in the chat, let me know if you've used any of these for your restaurant. So the 8 opportunities I see, and Brian, I'll get your feedback on what you guys have done on these. 4 walls marketing, in-store marketing, off-site items. What I mean is you're going to a hospital down the street, you're dropping off a catering order, they can scan a code, get into a program, do something. I call them team cards. A lot of restaurant owners a lot of business owners in general have business cards. Well, have your business card work for you. Don't just have your name and phone number and email on it. Have a call to action that takes them someplace. Your point of sale data, your online ordering. That's been a huge thing in 2021 or 2020. A lot of businesses weren't doing online ordering. Now they are. Well, guess what people got to give you when they order online? Their name, their phone number, their email. So take advantage of it. Your website, landing pages, online presence, Google My Business, Yelp, Yahoo, Bing. There's hundreds of websites that you can be optimizing to point people somewhere. Social media, of course, we know Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Snapchat, LinkedIn is a good one that a lot of people aren't taking advantage of that has opportunity. And then mass media, direct mail, outdoor. There's all these different opportunities. Did I miss anything on here, Brian, that you could possibly use to get awareness?
I mean, word of mouth is about the only thing that comes to mind within your like caterings and stuff like that. But no, I think this covers a vast majority of it. The thing I would add, and stop me if you're going to get here, is I can almost feel everybody on the call going, where in the hell do I have time to do all of this? Yeah. Online, websites, use my data, make media cards. I was like, the reality is you have to find that time or find that person, right? We're lucky that we have multiple owners with different skill sets, so we kind of divide and conquer. I've got a really good friend who owns a very successful barbecue joint in another state. He's horrible with this stuff. He probably doesn't even know how to log on to Facebook, but he hired somebody that was one of his employees, was a college kid that was great, was always on Instagram, was always on Facebook. And he hired them, paid him a little more than what he was paying him to, I think he was bartending at the time, to come in and own the social media and the website and all that stuff. It's so important that if it's not part of your business today, financially make it so, right? It's whether you use an online marketing at all, you still have to have all these components in place. And it's just going to be part of your day. And Matt and I've talked about this before. It's part of Mark and I's meeting every week. It's part of our daily plan, what we're posting. We know in advance, we know when we're posting. All those things are laid out like you would do a line check, or you would go behind your cooks and check to see if things are stocked and labeled correctly, right? This is no different than any other part of the restaurant business. And it's just a change in mindset. It's easier to give money to a radio station and walk away, right? But you're not going to get the same results if you're going to go do these things. You'll be much more successful with them, guaranteed.
And like I've got a piece of paper that I use that I make my notes on every day. And 3 things that I have on here, I tell myself.
Look what I use.
Yeah, you got the MP binder. There you go. I've got it every day. I write my notes out on a piece of paper. I've got my MP binder too, but this is guides my day. And the 3 things I have on there, I have lead, I have market, and I have sell. I need to lead 2 hours a day. I need to market 2 hours a day. I need to sell 2 hours a day. I think 2 of the biggest things that restaurant operators forget about are marketing and selling. They want to advertise. I always say advertising is easy. It's easy to click to boost a post. It's easy to give a radio station a check. It is hard to market. It's hard to sell. And I interviewed last Wednesday, one of my expert roundtables. I had a guy named TJ that owns a Witch out in Texas. And he's also a restaurant consultant. And he was talking about, marketing and selling. He's like, Matt, the other day I was in the drive-thru and lady pulled up and I was giving her a meal and I noticed she had this hospital on her shirt. And I asked her if she worked there, and of course she did. And she said, man, I'd love to cater meals at your hospital or bring in bulk orders because I know you guys are all busy. And she's like, great, let me find out who to talk to. I changed information. Week later, 100-person order. and now they're in the restaurant because he marketed and sold. And I think those are two big elements that your marketing, your advertising can market and sell, but so can you as an operator. And that's where a lot of these things fit in as well.
I think some of it is that people overcomplicate, like we've talked about with videos. Like handouts and calls to actions don't need to be this, professionally done by a graphic designer. Just some basic skills can get you. We have a flyer that we put together with call to actions on it that we have our nighttime manager come in 2 hours early on Wednesdays. And we've designated 5 to 7 businesses we want him to go visit. And he takes a little bag of snacks and he takes a call to action. And it's 9 out of 10 times they've seen our videos. They've already seen us on Facebook, but it's that now we've gotten in front of them with a call to action, and it turns into not only caterings, but them just coming in for lunch and then, spreading the word that way. So I think we sometimes overcomplicate what marketing and materials have to be. And it can be something very simple. As long as it's clear and concise and people can have a call to action off of it. Yeah,
for sure. So I want you to think about all the paths for awareness. How can you get people to know you? As my sign says, I know Matt Plapp. How can I get people to know Matt Plapp? How can you get people to know your restaurant? So I'm going to dig into a couple of these and just show you a couple of examples. And these are easy wins because I'm going to go into the next step after this. So the first thing I think a lot of restaurants drop the ball on is the people that are already doing business with you. I asked the guy the other day, how many guests do you serve a month? He said, 4,000. I said, how many people, when they walk in your place, go through the drive-through, get a third-party order? How many people do you ask for their name, phone number, and email? I was at Panera Bread about, it's a couple of years ago. I use this example. This isn't the knock on Panera. It was kind of comical. The lady literally said, you don't want to give me your email, do you? I was like,
no.
But I want you to think about how many people you serve a month and how many people you make an effort to convince to give you their information, especially third party. Third party bag stuffers, put something in there. Hey, we appreciate your order. We want you to order from us again. By the way, here's the perk. Scan this code to get it. Website traffic is a huge one. I don't know if we have an opt-in on your site, Brian, or you do or not, but we can get it done if you don't. But this is a stats from one of our clients. In the month of November, we put in place a simple thing. People go to their website, it pops up and it says, do you want a free waffle? Click here to enroll in a VIP program. 384 people opted in the first 4 weeks, of which 67 walked in within a month and spent $1,698.45. And nothing happened. There was no expense. It was traffic that already went there. And there's a lot more web traffic now than there was 2 years ago. And honestly, I was telling somebody today, I'm like, I think any restaurant that prints menus up in 2020, 21, I'd almost contemplate going exclusively online just because everybody's accustomed to it. It saves you money and it gives you a way to force them somewhere. So you can force them to a landing page, not a PDF, but a landing page with your menu. And while they're looking at that, it pops up and says, hey, Matt, you want a free offer for your next visit? You want a birthday surprise? And you can have those things time delayed to where they don't get them then because they're in your restaurant, but they get it the next visit. But
And we do kind of both, Matt. So we live we've got an older general community in a very blue collar town that we kept getting requests for black and whites, they wanted a printed off menu. We have a digital board up top, but they still want to be able to go sit at the table and look at it. And so we put the QR code as a call to action to the VIP program.
Yep.
And so at least it's not wasted in that way. We still feel like we're handing them something that gives them a chance to go find us electronically as well, if they so choose.
And your menu it's going to keep getting more and more traffic. But the last line on here I want you to think about is I showed you all those 8 different tactics. There's probably 40 on that page total, but I want you to think about these 2 things right here: your people that you already serve and your website traffic. And I say that 1 month of data is worth 10 grand in sales annually. And the next slide, kind of questions that. And I'll ask 3 questions. We'll come back to these later on. So Matt, somebody did anything. How's that worth 10 grand? So I'm going to think about 3 questions. We're going to get to this at the end. Number 1, does your food suck? Number 2, is your service great? Number 3, is your environment appealing? And we'll go on to the next. So the next part of engagement, one other example I want to show you, social media. Social media is hot. I showed you the example of Brian's videos. Brian's company does an amazing job of creating content, of engaging customers, of highlighting employees, of showing that they're a local business. But here's a simple example of a Facebook ad that asked people to do something specific and gave them one option to do it and one opportunity when they got there. 3,222 engagements to do this. This was over a 60-day period for this business. This is a small one-location pizza restaurant. 1,482 people raised their hand and said, here's my name, my phone number, my birthday. 185 of them walked in and spent $3,500. This is an opportunity online to get people to do something. So the results are there if you simply take advantage of the results. Now, a question I get a lot is, what information should I get? One thing you'll see throughout here, our database dynamite, and Brian, that might be new to you. We've never really publicly talked about it, but I've always in the background talked about, like, what can we do two-pronged? Database dynamite's what I looked at, like on our end. And we're going to start using the brand more in the future publicly, but it was, how do I blow up a customer's database, make it bigger? And then how do I blow it up into smaller chunks to segment it so I know I talk to people? We'll get to that a little later. But people always ask me, Matt, what information should I get? I don't want to ask them for everything. I'd say, why not? Like, if I get 1,000 people that raise their hand and I can get 950 of them to give me their email, great. If I sacrifice 50 emails to get 900 email and sell, that's even more data. If I sacrifice another 850 people down to 850 to get birthday, email, and phone, that's ideal. So I always tell people, one of the biggest mistakes we made marketing for restaurants and even our own company was about 2 years ago, we got away from cell phone collection for about 6 months to a year. And I kicked myself because it's the easiest form of communication and it's becoming more and more adaptable. What do you see, Brian, from like people's data, information, anything to add here?
I'll add, I was going to go back while you're looking at the ad on the pizza one. Remember the one we ran in December that had nothing to do with our food, had nothing to do, nothing branded fatties other than it came from us around the win the gift card?
Oh, yeah.
It was a little contest we ran. I'm looking at it now, 1,172 comments, a reach of over 10,000 people, 40 shares, like just crazy amount of traffic driven in to view fatties. And I can't tell you how many, I don't have it up in front of me, how much that turned into revenue from they joined the VIP club and has subsequently turned into revenue. But that's the data that we're wanting, right? Even if I didn't do anything other than on these 1,172 comments, interact with them, it's a win I don't get when they hand me a coupon or listen to a radio ad.
Yeah.
Right. This gave me a chance to at least go interact and thank them or chat with them or laugh at their comment or whatever. And now I forgot what I was commenting on, Matt.
I was about just collecting data, just collecting people's information.
Well, you and I look at it. I'm the same way. We make decisions monthly based off of what we see in that data. We know how many birthdays, how many phone emails we get, how many phone numbers we get, and we use that to make a determination on where do we go spend our money next month or next quarter. We can see what people are buying and how much they're spending through this program. That allows me then to go back and tie in if I want to raise prices on there or decrease prices. Do I need to push more towards that? It's like we talked about POS data. It's the same thing. If you're not using your POS data, why pay for the POS? Like, we know who's buying what and how often. And that's how we make decisions, not only on what we order, but on how we price things and where we go talk to our sales rep about it. Like, hey, I need to get a cheaper price on this, and because I know I'm going to sell a ton of them. I wouldn't know that without the data from between this database and my POS.
Yeah.
It is what makes the biggest difference to us staying afloat in COVID. We could change quickly. You were talking about covers and guests and stuff like that earlier. Like, I know my average over the last 3 months is 38, almost 3,900 covers monthly. Wow. And I know about 75-ish, 80% of that is to go between Grubhub and just takeout. Yep. Well, a year ago, it was 60%, 70% dine-in, right? So we've done a complete flip-flop and ad. We wouldn't know that without the data. And so that allows us to go look for cheaper styrofoam because that's costing us more now, finding other ways to maybe package things that I can shave off 3 or 4 cents here and there. So all that data is super important. And if you don't have that, and if you're not good at that, it goes back to get somebody on your team that is, whether it's a manager or a college student that's studying statistics or whatever that is. Find that person that can help you understand the data and how to use it.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to ask, like that point of sale you're talking about. they have ability to feed information in there, whether you're using, like we're using Messenger, whether you're using landing pages, whether you're using your point of sale, your online ordering. Ask for as much information as you can get, because it's only going to arm you. Like we switched back in the fall, and we're slowly transitioned into the winter of this, where not only do we ask on the front end, we automatically get their name and their gender because the way we do it through Messenger, but we also ask birthday and cell phone, and we switch the order to cell phone and phone and email. But we also ask a question to find out if they're a new customer, frequent, or lost, because one of our goals, as I talked about database dynamite, is to blow up the database. Instead of having an old school list from 5 years ago of 10,000 email addresses, I want to have more information on each customer, but I also want to know deeper information. So I want to know, okay, these 475 people over here are females that told us they're frequent customers. These 400 told us they're men that are new customers, so that down the road you can have different conversation based on people's, what they've told you. And then the big thing, yep.
I think the benefit to a program, whether it's you or somebody else where you can collect this data, is how you collect it.
Yeah.
One of the things I was apprehensive about with a program that automatically captured data and then would go ask questions is I didn't want to turn off my potential customers. And what I found is the way most, like the system that we use with Matt, is we send them an offer, they come in and use it, they have a great experience. About 24 hours later, they start getting 1 or 2 questions. Hey, tell me more about yourself so we can send you another offer that applies. Boom, boom, boom. We send them that offer, they use it, they come in, have another good experience. Now we ask them another question or 2. And so it's not about hitting them in the face with what's your name, your address, your email. Do you prefer, you're not hitting them with all that up front. You're kind of nurturing a relationship. It's like dating, right? You don't go on a first date and ask 872 questions and expect to get a second date. You find out a little bit more. I had a good time. We'll go on a second date. And that's kind of how I think of this, is we're dating, we're courting these customers. Good experience, good food. Then I can ask a few more questions. And then you come back again. Now I know I got you. We can ask a few more questions.
And this next slide is, I think, ultra important. And it's, outside of the data, you could be collecting the wrong data. Back when we started exclusively working with restaurants, we were working with a brand called Smokehouse, and the one owner, Nick, famously told me, I can't deposit likes. I can't go to US Bank and deposit likes, Matt. How do I know all this stuff you're doing to grow? Because we were growing an email list. We grew an email list of like 18,000 people for a one location restaurant in 6 months. And he was like, well, how do I know it's worthwhile? So then we started going, okay, well, how can we attribute success to our efforts? Because if we get attention, and that attention leads to a database, and those database are people who will not visit the restaurant, who cares? We had that happen. We had a restaurant in Denver that was a couple location gourmet restaurant, and we blew up their database, 2,500 people in like 6 to 8 weeks. We had a 1 to 2% redemption rate. And one of the things when I looked at that, I'm like, why is this not working? The ads are working, people are engaged. Well, I later found out that restaurant had been on Anthony Bourdain's show. They had been on Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives a couple times. One time it always replayed. They had this love affair with their brand in Denver. But the problem was people were opting in from an hour, like, oh, I'm going there eventually. And they never went. And so we were spending money to build a database that was useless. It just wasn't there. So you need to have some attribution. And when go back to Hofbrauhaus's example from April 26, 2015, National Pretzel Day, we ran some simple Facebook ads, an email campaign, and people walked in and showed their phone and went, okay, we did this effort, and these people came in and spent money. Great. Now the next step is, how many points of positive attribution can you get? And meaning by knowing that your ad worked is great. What if you can tie that back to a person? Then you can optimize and go, okay, we had 500 customers come in. These 150 are women that are married with kids. Let's find more of them. And so think about when you're marketing, making sure that you know what you're doing is actually driving a result that is correct. Because like I said, if you're building a database of people that aren't walking in the restaurant, who cares? And what I love about when people engage, like you mentioned, the follow-up questions, Brian, after they've redeemed something, is finding out more information. As full disclosure, that's a picture of my wife and my son a long time ago. I realized when I was doing presentations, the example I used was some random lady from the program. And I'm like, probably shouldn't show hundreds of thousands of people, somebody else, but that's my wife and a fake name. Her name is Christy, but the last name I'm not sure. But this is legit information. I mean, do you know who your customers are? Do you know if they're male or female? Do you know if they're married or single? Do you know if they have kids or they don't have kids? I think all of these different pieces of data are things that if you know, you can build more customers. I was talking to a customer recently, 83% of the people in their database were female. And this guy was like, wow. He's like, Matt, I took that data. I looked at my Facebook posts I've been making recently. My Facebook posts are all about beer and football. And apparently I'm talking to the wrong people because I wondered why none of those promotions work. And you're telling me 80% of our database is female. Okay, I'm going to switch up the messaging. I'm going to go to a little more wine. I'm going to not be heavy on beer, not be heavy on football, be more family. And when he made the adjustment, he saw more promotions work in his restaurant because he knew who his customer base was.
See, we've seen it switch, and I would have never known that without that data. When we first opened, we were really heavy women joining the program. We're now 56% men with kids that are about 80% are married, 79.8. So we tend to now try to take our marketing and push it more towards a family type of promotions, and like we did a date night special. And when we did that promotion, we talked about it. Hey, bring your wife out, right? Come out of the house, leave the kids with a babysitter, right? We knew that because we had the data, so we could go make an ad, a video that kind of focused specifically on that.
Yeah, and it allows you to, now that you have information, to build long-term relationships, to build conversations. What I always tell people is, now that you've got this database, don't let it sit there. I talked to a guy the other day, a guy and his wife, their restaurant, they have a couple locations. They've got like 7,800 people in their point of sale that have been there this year. And they were like, Matt, it honestly never occurred to us to extract that and do something. It's just, we've been so busy. We're not marketers, we're restaurant operators, but you've got data. And a lot of people have more data than they realize. And the key to now is using that. And this goes back to the 3 questions I asked you earlier, because I had a guy a couple of years ago. I'll never forget this because it was funny to me. And sometimes you have to be a little gutsy when you ask questions because you don't know how they're going to go sometimes in the sales world. But I had this client of ours who we had been working with for about 3 months at the time. And it was a restaurant in Columbus, Ohio. And I was up there in person with him. And he said, Matt, okay, this is great. We've done this attention. We've gotten this database, and it was like 1,000 people had redeemed a promotion at his restaurant. And he's like, how do I know they're coming back? And I said, okay. And this is where it goes back to that $10,000 value. I said, let me ask you a question. Does your food suck? And he's like, and he kind of looked at me, was like kind of set back. He goes, well, you just ate here. What do you think? I said, I thought the food was phenomenal. He goes, okay. I said, what about the service? I said, I probably got good service because I'm sitting with the owner. How was your service normally? He's like, well, I think it's pretty solid. He's like, based on our online reviews, we average like a 4.8 from Yelp and Google. I'm like, okay, that means you've got good service. And I said, is the environment appealing? And I looked around, it's a clean restaurant. It's nice. It's cool. It's eclectic. I said, so let me ask you a question. If you build a database of people who raised their hand, gave you their information, physically walked in here, why would they not come back if your food's good, they had a good experience, they liked the place? The reason they might not come back is you don't invite them. And so the value is if you have somebody's name and phone number and email, you now have the ability to nurture them long-term, because that's what happens. We go to a place called Barleycorns down the street from my house. We go there every week. So we move where we live at, Brian. We're about 5-6 miles from where we used to live, but we had to switch like sides of the city basically to get to a certain school district for my kids. Before we lived over here, we went to Barleycorns about once every 6 to 8 weeks. One of my favorite restaurants, but we went there once every 6 to 8 weeks because the restaurant was away from my house. I never drove by. We moved over here off of 42. I have to drive by Barleycorns to get home and to get to my office. We eat there weekly. It's simple. The reason we eat there weekly now, I might go there tonight actually. The reason we eat there weekly now is that we see them more often. Before, they did a bad job of inviting me to come to the restaurant. They never marketed to me. They didn't have my email, my cell phone, my birthday. They had to hope and pray that Matt Platt came back. Well, now they're fortunate that I drive by their restaurant all the time. And that's why, like, I remember there was a guy when I was at your restaurant that walked down to the restaurant and got food. And you guys said he came like every day.
Yeah, he lives 2 blocks.
Yeah.
Eat
And
there,
so
sometimes twice a day.
yeah. And there's a pretty good chance that even if he loves your food, if he moves 4 miles away and isn't near you, you're not in this pattern. Unless you market to him, you're not going to get that business.
Right.
So what I constantly talk about is having a plan. And so if you're going to build this database, plan how you're going to use it. Like I always think back to the pre-GPS days. I was talking about this to a friend the other day. I'm like, I remember my wife and I in college went to Myrtle Beach, and I remember going to MapQuest and printing out how to drive to Myrtle Beach from Kentucky. Because I didn't have a Garmin GPS in I didn't even have. I don't think I had a cell phone back then. I think I had a beeper. You turn it on up, beep, 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 beep. And I remember printing that off and having my plan of how I was going to get there. Well, if you're a restaurant, have a plan of how you're going to use that database this year. So like we have what I see as 4 opportunities each month to talk to people. Some type of contest. I mean, the Super Bowl is coming up next month, or as you can call it online, the big game. You don't want to get sued or use their infringement. But you can do a promotion for guess the score, who's going to win the game, get people engaged, things like that. And then you can drive them somewhere else. You can do an offer. I always tell restaurants, don't get accustomed or addicted to sending out coupons all the time, but frame it as offers and do it occasionally. Monthly event, Valentine's next month. There's always an event coming up, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Sweetest Day, 4th of July, Memorial Day, Labor Day. And then, menu items. A lot of times we don't talk to people about the menu. People get accustomed to eating what they eat, and they might not know you have something else. I found out one of my restaurants the other day, this new dessert they've got, I had never seen it. Somebody asked if there's going to be a replay in the chat. Yeah, there'll be a replay. So put together a plan so that you can make more informed decisions about what's going to happen in future months. And so like Brian talks about with videos, if you know that February, you're going to promote, like 2 of the things we've suggested to our clients for February is to do something tied into Valentine's Day that week. Because if you're a restaurant that might influence people to eat together, whether it's takeout or carry out or dine in, and then also the Super Bowl. It's an easy one.
Here's my idea we're kicking around, Matt, for Valentine's Day, and I'll share it. Everybody can use it. We're trying to think of a way to do a promotion around a kiss cam, right? Post your picture of kissing your loved one, your pet, your kid, whatever. And I think the same kind of it. It's just an event. It's not about our food. It's not about a coupon, but it'll be one of those things I hope would get a lot of engagement. And it'll be cute and easy to interact with as an owner. I go back and I talk about like menu items become events, right? If you own your own restaurant and you're not part of a big chain conglomerate, you have full control over menu. We talk to our sales reps like, hey, what's cheap this month, right? What is it you guys need to get rid of? We can get a special on. Like we did an alligator sausage special, right? Not because we want to sell alligator, because we got it at a really good price. And that becomes an event that we can promote and push. You just got to kind of plan, like to your point, kind of think out what's coming to your way and make it part of your daily, weekly, monthly routine.
Yeah, I mean, there's a restaurant in Cincinnati I use as an example a lot. They do I don't know if they do it right now, but because they just got reopened a couple weeks ago. But before COVID, they did a Thursday night, either a celebrity chef or a celebrity themed burger. And it was a stupid $25 burger. I mean, it was big, audacious, crazy stuff on it, octopus. And a lot of times, like people flock there. Oh, I got to get, and sometimes they don't release what's on it. They just call it a name. You're going to get the King Griffey Jr. burger. What's the King Griffey Jr. burger? And you're thinking, okay, what a King Griffey Jr. He all runs. So you're thinking about what this burger is going to be. You show up for that event, for that item. So, but if you plan these things out, you can do some pretty cool stuff. And there's a lot of opportunity, like an email program, a text program, like the promotion you mentioned in December. We looked at the database. I say we, the team. I wasn't involved in it. Can't take credit. But they looked at the database and they sent an email and a text campaign to people, not telling them to come do business with the restaurant, not saying here's our special, because that's what everybody does. A lot of businesses, whenever you email or text your database, all you want to do is puke on them with what you're doing to make money for yourself. We sent them to your Facebook page to engage in a contest for a $25 gift card. And like you said, 1,000+ people engaged in it. All we need to do is have them see the fatty's name, engage in that post. One, Facebook or Instagram is going to retarget them more often now because they see they engage. They're going to show it to them for free and more other stuff. But then also they're going to start poking around your videos and your pictures and be like, honey, let's go eat there tonight.
We see that all the time. We'll run a special and people literally will say they came in to see it, or we post a picture of something Mark was goofing around with while he was doing prep while we're closed on a Monday. And people are like, is that going to be for sale? Can I come get that? Like, nope, I'm just throwing stuff together tonight, making dinner, right? So it isn't just about coupons and offers. It's about engaging and creating content that's not what everybody else is getting. Yep. I think one of the coolest commercials I've seen today is, imagine having a brand so powerful, you don't show your name or your logo. You know which commercial I'm talking about?
Is that well, I've seen a couple of them, but
it's the Doritos one.
Oh yeah, the dust.
They never show their name. They never show their logo. They've got a triangle on a few spots, right? It's like, that's what we're going for. Is I want recognition to the point that when they hear barbecue or they smell smoked meats, they think of Fatty Smokehouse. And that's not always done by me putting pictures of my meat in my restaurant in their face, right? And that sounded really bad. My apologies.
Along your point, it's the same way with me. People ask me, Matt, why do you wear, why is orange everywhere with you? I'm like, because I want to be associated with something. I had a guy that it was probably a year ago. He knew I like sports cars, and he calls me up one day. I happen to be out of town, but he called me and goes, hey, are you on 42 right now in this orange car? And I'm like, no, I'm out of town, but why would you think that was me? He's like, well, because it's a sports car, and I know you're a sports car guy, and you have cars all the time. He's like, and it's orange. Then another buddy of mine told me this is even funnier. He was meeting me at the airport in San Diego, and we were supposed to meet somewhere, and he comes up, he's like, dude, I just had the most embarrassing thing. I said, what? He goes, I walked up and hugged some dude from behind, and it was I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, what? It was some guy wearing an orange sweatshirt. He said the guy turned around and looked at me and was like, So, to that Doritos example, which I had some Doritos for lunch today, and you did have the orange stuff in your hands, you've got to create something. So that's what I wanted to talk about today. That's what this webinar was for. I'm planning what you're going to do this year. Look at how you can eliminate hope and pray. And I hope that, people that watched it got value out of what we talked about, what Brian talked about. I wanted Brian on here because it's real world examples. He's in a restaurant every day. He's dealing with this every day. He knows exactly what it takes to not hope and pray and aim and expect. And so think about, when you're planning your marketing this year, what you're doing to eliminate that hope and pray. And there's opportunities to get awareness. There's opportunities to get engagement. There's opportunities to build a database, a following of people who have raised their hand to work with you to come to your restaurant. And then, of course, drive them in and then cultivate that relationship. So I appreciate your time, Brian. And if anybody's out there, if you want help, if you're a restaurant that is looking for help on stuff like this, you want advice, you want to have a conversation, that's my cell phone number. You can text me, shoot me a message. We'll hop on a call, or you can just go to go.restaurantmarketing.works.com. It's a page. You can set up an appointment, and you'll notice I practice what I preach. When you go to that page, go.restaurantmarketing.works.com, there's one opportunity on there. Schedule an appointment. I'm not sending you somewhere to do 20 things. And guess what? When you schedule an appointment, I'm going to get your name, your phone number, your business name, and how many restaurant locations you have. So if you want to work with us, you want to talk to us, let us know. We'd love to have conversations. Brian, any closing words from your end?
I just always like to leave with this when you invite me to these, is like, I don't work for Matt. I don't work for his company. We are clients of his. And so when I'm talking to you, it's about real world experience I've had with he and his team. He doesn't pay me to be here. I'm here because I believe in the product and I believe in the message. And I say this every time I'm lucky enough to speak on this. You can reach out to me as well if you have questions around the program and how it's worked from a restaurant side, or want to throw some ideas up against a wall. You can find us on Facebook at Fatty Smokehouse. And my profile is Brian Pickard. As you can see my name there, you can find me that way as well. I'm happy to spend a few minutes chatting with you. This is a hard time for all of us. So the more heads we put together and rattle them around, the better results we may end up with. So happy to help.
Yeah, and I appreciate you coming on. How important do you think, because you had a head start going into COVID, everybody was hit pretty hard by it. What kind of impact do you think having what we were doing, the database, all the stuff we talked about, what kind of impact did that have that helped you get through last year?
I don't want to sound like it's hyperbole. I don't know if we'd still be open. Right. When COVID hit, we had just had our 1-year anniversary. So we're still new to the market. Our database at that time was probably about half the size it is now, maybe 4,000 people, give or take. And we were able to leverage that with you and your team to change promotions, to nurture. Oh, hey, look, it's the crazy guy. He's home.
What's up?
So we were able to work with you guys on changing the message, getting information out quickly and effectively. And I just don't know if we'd be here if we wouldn't have been able to push things to people's email box and to market the way that you guys allowed us to market. Yeah, I mean, 9 months later, we probably wouldn't have a Fatty Smokehouse. So I think a lot of that has to do with the database and how we used it. And then, of course, what we do in the store with our customers we all have to do that. But yeah, I credit it for success, surviving the COVID for sure.
Yeah. And I'll say it goes both ways. I had somebody ask me today, a guy that we work with there, one location restaurant in Knoxville, and he said, Matt, what do you see that we're doing that is right or wrong? I said, well, I can be completely frank with you. You need to follow. I'm going to give you some advice, a guide that you need to follow, because right now your restaurant looks like every chain restaurant that's run by corporate America. I want you to look like I want you to look like Fatty's. I want you to take and look at the highlighted employees, the creative content, put in a face to it, having candid conversations on video. You guys do exactly what people should do. And I think
I cried one night.
Huh?
I cried one night on a video. Wasn't planned. Just kind of happened.
Yeah, it was real. I watched it. It was a great video, and people appreciate that. So it's a combination of having social media, having a website, having email, text, in-store marketing that all reflects you and your brand and your personality, and then putting it out in front of people. Because at the end of the day, the more people that know Fatty's or your restaurant or whoever's restaurant, the more chance you have of success. The less people that know, it is what it is. It's why I keep this sign in my office from a conference a couple years ago. I know Matt Platt. I need to figure out how to make more people know Matt Platt. You need to make sure people know Fatty's. It's the same thing.
I agree 100%.
Well, cool. Well, that's all I got. I appreciate you, everybody hanging out with us. I appreciate you coming on, Brian. I'm going to go get some food now. You got me hungry thinking about barbecue.
It's fried chicken tonight for us. So I'm avoiding the meat tonight, or the smokehouse tonight. So.
Cool. Well, I appreciate your time, and look forward to getting out there and seeing you guys again. Tell Mark and Catherine I said hello.
Come on down. Thank you, guys.
See everybody.